Terrorism, I mean, you know, I'm from downstate. Terrorism is flying planes into buildings. This is just murder, as far as I'm concerned.
That is Michael Korchak, the DA of Broome County, talking about the Buffalo mass shooting, saying the idea that that would be terrorism. No, terrorism is when Muslim. Now, I don't know what's in his heart, but the idea that something happening here where a person who apparently is being like inspired by their political conspiracy theory goes and commits an act of mass violence against the civilian population to terrify people, to influence our politics. Look, I mean, I only spent half a decade in political science academia, so what do I know? But kind of feel like that's the dictionary definition of terrorism. The idea that just because this guy used a gun, you're not counting it. That seems weird to me, but Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, because he used a gun, because he was in the United States, because he was white, because the people who were dying were not majorly white. It's pretty clear where a lot of these people stand when it comes to this. And this was clearly an act of violence committed for political purposes, and it caused a lot of terror. Pretty straightforward. It was a terrorist attack.
Seems to me. Let's give him a little bit more of a chance to make his case. Here he is.
This is just murder, as far as I'm concerned. It is terrorism because you're terrorizing the community, and it was racially motivated, we believe, at this point in time. But from the DA's perspective, crime is crime, and whatever your motive for doing it, your motive is you're an evil person, and that's why you're doing it. So, I mean, I really don't get into what's terrorism and what's not terrorism. It's crime.
But you did though, you just did. You just said that it wasn't, except, well, I guess you're terrorizing the community. Well, what is terrorism then? You seem to think it is, but not in a way that should matter or influence the investigation. It is an act of politically inspired violence against the civilian population. Look, if this isn't it, then let's just not have terrorism be a thing. Let's not have that be a term. Let's not talk about it anymore. You could make the case maybe, but that clearly is what's going on. We do label other sorts of attacks as terrorism. We do that for reasons depending on who we are. There's clearly a reason for that. So why in this case you'd carve it out and say that it's just evil? I can't even say that I'm confused about that because I feel like it is pretty clear. It gets back to what you were saying, Jessica. The idea that you would say, let's not think critically about this. Let's not get into how this might be political or how others might interpret it or use it or carry out similar attacks in the future. Let's just use the word evil. That's it. Now, I will agree. I think that if the word evil means anything, it very accurately depicts this as well. But the idea that this is just evil and that's as far as we should think into it, that seems opportunistic. That seems like it is shielding potentially a fruitful analysis of what's going on here. But Jessica, give me your thoughts.
Yeah, using soft language when it comes to describing this is dangerous. It normalizes it. And only going into what happened at a very shallow level is also dangerous and also normalizes it. To say that this was racially motivated and evil, I'm sorry, it doesn't accurately describe what happened. This person wrote a manifesto where he made very clear that he's very worried about white replacement theory, very much believes in white replacement theory, and this is because he believes in white nationalism. He had, fascist symbols written on the gun that he used. This was a right-wing extremist, fascist who believes in white nationalism. That's a lot more than just this was an evil, racially motivated act. It's a lot
100%.
deeper than that.
Yeah, and look, again, I don't know this person. This isn't like a comment from a Ted Cruz where I've heard a lot of what they've had to say and the positions they've held. But like, you got to do better. Like you're the DA. Like you are in a position of authority, a position of responsibility, generally a position of respect, whether earned or not. Like you are going to be asked questions like this. You should do a bit of thinking about it if you're going to be involved in these investigations. Now, I will give you some updates on what's going on. A grand jury, as of this morning, has indicted the suspect on a first-degree murder charge. The FBI is also currently looking at this potentially as a hate crime, potentially, again, because there's no common sense in our society anymore. So anyway, they say it might be racially motivated. Gee, do you think? As you point out, yes, it had those symbols and stuff like that on the weapon. There was also the manifesto, but we can't say for sure. These are all allegations at this point. In any event, other updates. The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, is going to be investigating some social media platforms where the stream of this attack was available, including Twitch, 4chan, and Twitter, 8chan as well. Apparently, millions have now seen the shooting, although only 22 actually watched it live. Twitch removed the stream after only 2 minutes, so very quickly they jumped on it and got rid of it. It took Facebook 10 hours. 10 hours is time for the news to break, spread over social media, everyone to start to learn about it, multiple cable news shows to do their like quarterly updates on the investigation, an entire night of primetime analysis and coverage to happen, and then they take it down, I guess. Anyway, Letitia James says the fact that an individual can post detailed plans to commit such an act of hate without consequence and then stream it for the world to see is bone-chilling and unfathomable. Now, I will say, in terms of it having been like the manifesto being posted earlier, I have no idea how reasonable it is to say that someone should have found it. If you put something like that in Google Docs, do I want Google to be analyzing everything that you put up in real time to immediately alert the authorities? That seems potentially problematic. So I don't know about that part of it. The idea that they would leave the stream up for so long, though, that seems, I feel like if I were to use Baby Shark in one of my videos, I feel like Facebook would jump on that a little bit quicker. I feel like when they want to, they can take things down. I get updates, from stuff on the network that has copyright strikes or whatever. I don't think that takes weeks to take down. So I don't know, Jessica, but what do you think?
Yeah, intellectual property getting more protections than people spreading dangerous, violent rhetoric and committing acts of violence on live stream. I remember within those 10 hours, I saw on Twitter, someone said, hey, the video is still up. And if you reported it, you would get this message that said, we've reviewed this and we've determined that it doesn't violate our guidelines. And if it disturbs you, you can block the user, et cetera. So who was that moderator? Was it a human? Was it an algorithm? We need some accountability for whoever that moderator was who said this is fine.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a lot about this. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna make a lot of absolute statements about what I would expect people in real time to necessarily do. The thing that I'm focusing on here is the 10 hours, because that's not a snap judgment you need to make. That is time for multiple levels of bureaucracy to fail and then be replaced by another one. In the area of snap judgments though, and I just saw someone mention this on the chat, the 911 dispatcher has been placed on administrative leave. Termination will be sought. The store employee who initially called in the attack says she hung up on her during the shooting, saying, quote, she was yelling at me saying, why are you whispering? You don't have to whisper. And again, I don't know exactly what that was like in the moment. You're trained to handle these sorts of situations though. So I do think that we are able to have some expectations, and the idea that they wouldn't want you on that position going forward, I sort of get. I would imagine this individual will be a little bit more careful in the future, but when people's lives are on the line, that is not a chance that I think many people are gonna wanna take.
Yeah, super stressful situation, but again, it's a job where you're always going to be in a super stressful situation. And so yeah, it's reasonable that they let this staffer go, because the last thing you want to do is to call 911 and get some sass back when you're dealing with a super stressful, dangerous situation.
Exactly, yeah, and why would you be whispering when talking about a mass shooting? I don't know. I guess I'm not trained in that area. But wait, you are. Common sense, come on. Can you imagine how like you're already terrified in a way that the rest of us cannot even imagine? And that's the response you get. And then if they were to hang up, like your stomach would sink, how terrified you would be. I can't imagine amidst all of the other terror, how horrific that entire thing is. Anyway.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.